Hi, I'm David, and welcome to the Jersey Type. Today we're going to be talking about rare typewriters, or more specifically, what to look for in a typewriter when finding one out in the wild. This video idea was prompted by me finding this machine in a local antique store. This is a Remington Remy Scout model from about the early 30s, and when I first saw this, I knew exactly that it was a Remington portable, but I just didn't know which one. Upon further research, I found advertisements showing this machine and production years and stuff, a lot of information, but it was abnormal than the other Remington portables, specifically because of this front body. But I wouldn't have picked this up if I didn't know what I was looking for first. I mean, specifically the Remington portable, I just knew what one of those looked like and what they go for. And this looked like one of those, so it must have gone for something as well. That's something we'll be discussing in this video. Moving from the Remington for a sec, some other things that I look for when finding machines in the wild is what the machine actually comes with besides the typewriter itself. Like if you have the case or the manual, the ribbon, the original ink ribbons, the key is important. That was a wild card with this machine. I didn't even know it came with it when I bought it, but stuff like this is important to look for because if you get a machine without the case, especially a portable one, it is worth a lot less than if you're just missing the dust cover for something like that. And if you have the manual, it doesn't raise the price drastically, unless the machine is in really nice condition, which then it can raise the price a decent bit. A lot of the stuff doesn't raise the price a whole bunch, but if it has everything together, then a machine can be worth picking up. Let me put it that way. Normally, a machine such as this, which is one that you can find in antique stores pretty commonly, is a Smith Corona 5 series. Normally, a machine like this would go for maybe $60 or $70, depending on where you live. Sometimes cheaper, sometimes more expensive. But normally running around the $60 or $70 in an antique store. If you're selling it online or something, you can sell it for higher because typewriter and antique prices on eBay always go for higher for whatever reason. You can probably sell this for $120 in its current state. Maybe. I mean, it might be sitting there for eons, but you could price it like that. But if you're selling it with everything, easily makes the price jump up $20, $30. And it's just neat to have. I mean, this is the original owner's manual. Or, actually, I think this is... no, I think it's an owner's manual. Sometimes they're, like, operating manuals and stuff. It doesn't really matter that much, as long as the machine actually has it. And all of these other peripherals don't add all that much. But it is nice to have. Actually, I think this brush on its own, you can sell for maybe like $2 to $5. So that's a cool bonus. Keys don't go for much, and the original ink spools are also just nice to have. Don't really go for that much either. But altogether, and it's probably worth about $150 to $175 on eBay. If I'm being generous, most likely less. Like, don't price it at that. But that's like the upper limit that you could price something like this at. Okay, moving on to the next topic. Newer machines. These do not sell for a lot. They might price them for a lot, but they do not sell them for a lot. I bought this one for, I think, $60 or $70, and honestly, I think I overpaid. Well, it is a nice machine, but I like it. I'm glad that I bought it, but reasonably, I think I overpaid. Anything past 1978, let's put it that, a rough circa 5 years from then, is bad. It's all bad. A lot of the machines, especially the electric typewriters, they do not last. If something breaks, you can't fix them. You bring them to typewriter repair shop. I live next to one, thankfully. I mean, they couldn't even do it. I tried to crack at it. I couldn't do it. A lot of the machines from like the 70s and 80s, a lot of the electric ones, especially the late 70s, they cannot be repaired. If it's broken and it's something like catastrophic, like something with the mainspring or anything like that, it can't really be fixed. And even with these ones, these aren't electric ones, these are portable mechanical typewriters, thankfully. But even these ones, the plastic cases, they love to crack. Not as much as some of the 1980s electronics I've seen. Ugh. But, no, the plastic definitely cracks, and that loses value. And even if these were in pristine condition, people don't really buy typewriters like this. If they want a portable typewriter, they're gonna want something a bit older, something like some of these. These don't go for that much. A reasonable price for any machine like this is probably close to the $45 to $60 range. Maybe, if it works. If it doesn't work, I'm sorry, you might have to pay someone to get rid of it. Or I'm just being dramatic. I really don't know. I like these machines. I'd buy them. These are cool. It types. It does. I've had at least this typewriter on the channel a few times because I like it a lot. It is definitely later on. It's a 1976, so definitely past the typewriter prime, but I do like this one. There is some slight exceptions with the 70s and 80s rule. Specifically, if I pan over here, this is an Olympia SM9. I'm pretty sure this is one of the only typewriters that's actually worth getting from the 70s. They started making this specific body style and set up in 1969. I forget when they stopped, but this is a 74, and these are worth a bit. And they type nice. Some other honorable mentions being the IBM Selectric and Wheelwriter series. They're just always collectible, but those are like the main outliers. I don't know of any other typewriters from the Beyond era, the new era, the trash era, I'm calling it, that's actually worth anything. Actually, I might as well talk about the IBM Selectrics and Wheelwriters now, because, well, I'm here and they need to be mentioned. Okay, so these ones are worth a bit, and I did find these both in an antique store. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this has literally 3,000 moving parts, probably more. If it's broken, you might just want to phone up a professional, because I think I'm sort of good at fixing typewriters, and I don't even know where to start. You need to degrease it, because the grease kind of coagulates, so unless you buy a working one, you're kind of screwed. This one's pretty reliable, though. This one, it's a Wheelwriter. These ones, you just plug it in, see if it works. If it doesn't, don't buy it. If it does, do buy it. They're good, and it has these keyboards, which, even on their own, can be taken off the typewriter and sold, which makes the machine worth a base price of... I actually have no idea how much this is worth. Anywhere between $15 and $300. I know, it's not very helpful, but they are worth a bit, I think. Maybe. Who knows? And these are also worth a bit, if they work, which, quite frankly, if you see one in the public, they probably won't. I'd stay away from buying these unless you know that they work. Or know someone who fixes them. I shouldn't have bought that one. Okay, now let's move on to foreign typewriters. If you live in America, this applies to you. If you live anywhere that's not America, this probably does not apply to you. I can assume there's a lot of these in Czechoslovakia. Well, the Czech Republic. There's probably a lot of these in the Czech Republic. And probably a lot of these floating around Germany. The point is, a lot of these machines don't make their way to America that often. Well, okay, they kind of did. But still, seeing them in America does raise the price. This is a Czechoslovakian typewriter. I find pretty neat because, well, Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. So it's a typewriter made somewhere that doesn't exist. That automatically raises the price a fair bit. Olympia is a German typewriter company. Yeah, I think it says East Germany on the back of the machine, possibly. These did make their way to America. Apparently there's a lot of these in Ohio because of the immigrant population, from what I've heard. But yeah, these go for a bit. I got no idea how much they'd go for in their respective countries, but over here, this is around $300, I think, and I think that's the same for this one as well. It goes for a bit. Well, this one, actually, no, that applies to both of these. They both actually type really nice. I don't know why, but I don't know, the foreign typewriters type really well in my opinion. I mean, like, not just the sounds, it also just feels really nice. And I'm not evil, so I'll show you the bell. I said I'll show you the bell. That's good enough. These go for a decent bit. There is some other foreign brand that go for a bit in America too. I'll just sort of listen to them. You got Adler, Oliver, Olympia, Console. Those are those two. Zeta, which is what Console used to be. There's Brother. That's a Japanese one. Those go for a bit. What else? Huh. Okay. Well, there are more. Oh, Olivetti. That's one. Those ones go for a bit. Yeah, no, there's more. I can't name them off the top of my head at this moment. There is another issue when it comes to finding rarer machines, and I actually made a previous video about this, labeled typewriter rebadging. Moving back over to these ones, I mean, that's a Royal Sahara, right? And that's a Underwood 330, right? Wrong. That is an Olivetti Lettera 32, and that is a Adler Tippa. I mean, they're branded different, but at heart and mechanically, they are identical to an Adler Tippa and an Olivetti Lettera 32. And they are pretty valuable machines. If only they were actually labeled what they were. I mean, I don't know if this changes the value much, but that's another thing that you gotta look out for, and I'm pretty sure I go more in depth in my typewriter rebadging video. The moral of the story is foreign typewriters go for more in America because they didn't make their way to America that often. And now is the part of the video where I actually start talking about some rare machines. Ooh, I forgot one. Hermes. It's another good foreign brand. I think it's Germany? Very popular. People really like them. They do go for a lot. Okay, now moving on to some actually rare machines. That one's more rare than that one. This one, they only made around 16,000. This one, they made around 20,000. Except this is a specific pharmaceutical model, which I will make a separate video on later. It is destined. So I made about 12? Well, there's only 12 that survived, which makes this one very rare. I'll get into that soon. Rarer machines are hard to categorize because they're so diverse. And a lot of the time, rarity and value aren't linked up. This is a rare machine, and it doesn't go for all that much. This is an even rarer machine, it does go for that much, so that's the outlier. If we go over there, that Smith Premier 2 is an expensive machine, but it's certainly not rare. They made hundreds of thousands of those ones. And this machine, the Underwood S, they also made a lot of those ones, but this one is slightly more rare because it has a longer carriage. Which doesn't really increase the price that drastically, but it does have value because of that. So, just something to keep in mind. If it looks weird, it's probably valuable. The reason I found this one is because it was missing the front of the machine, which actually makes it more valuable. And the reason I bought this one is because, I mean, just look at that thing. What? You're calling this a typewriter? I don't know, I'm so glad I bought this one. This is pronounced Blickensderfer, and also you can see me in the reflection. Hi! Yeah, all Blickensderfers are worth a lot. I spent $300 on this machine, and it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. Matter of fact, I underpaid by several $1,000s. But that's only because this is a specific pharmaceutical version. Normal Blickensderfers go for anywhere between 150 and 750. The big range, better the condition, the better the value, and the older the machine, the better the value. Some other honorable mentions are down here, this being an Oliver 5 from the 1910s, and this being a Calligraph 2 from the 1880s. Anything from the 1800s is going to be worth more than anything not. And this has a weird design, and thus is worth a lot. If you see one of these in an antique store for anything hovering around $100, that is a good deal. Anything more, and it better be restored, and anything less, and just buy it immediately. I wouldn't even look around the rest of the store first. That's just, I don't know, I'm weird that way. This thing I bought online. I paid $500 for it, and it's not even functional, just missing all of its keys. And the sellers didn't know what they were selling, and so I made a lot of money if I were to sell this. This thing sells for about $2,000 because it's from the 1880s. Finding a typewriter from the 1890s is hard. Finding one from the 1880s is even harder. Finding one from the 1870s, no, you're just not going to. I saw one typewriter in the past 4 years on eBay from the 1870s, and it was listed for $20,000. No. Now, if you're struggling to find the year that your machine was made, and you don't feel like whipping out your phone and pulling up the typewriter database, then there's a few design principles to keep in mind. Anything like this, or that has wood grain, is made from the 60s and later. Going to the 50s, and they had a lot of chrome, and they were mostly gray sometimes. If you go into the later 50s, they tend to get more colorful, but before then, it's all black. For the most part, it's all black. This is one from the early 40s that is kind of an outlier. The rest of the Underwoods were black. Another thing to keep in mind when looking for date, without pulling up the typewriter database, is the key design. This is the Tombstone key design. This was happening because companies kind of got sick and tired of the round key design with glass, so they wanted to change it up, and they did Tombstone. And then immediately after that, they went to plastic. Very easy to find plastic. And that also immediately dates it to around the 1950s or later. Sometimes, especially with the Smith Corona ones, there's not glass here, and I don't think it's plastic, but I don't know what it is. But this is from the 1930s, so it's still old. The key legends themselves is something neat. If you have black keys with white letters, that normally means 30s and after. If it's the other way around, like this, then it normally means 30s and before. Although, sometimes they tend to switch it up. Moving over here, this is from 1948, and these are plastic, so even though they're round, it's still plastic and still a little later. Moving on to before they had the glass top and chrome rims, they had this, which was very common in like the 1910s and before. This is vegetable ivory. Really fancy, I know, but this is a good way to help date your typewriter as well. Another thing to keep in mind is how enclosed your machine is. This is from 1939. This is about when they started closing off the machines, and there's these removable panels here. Before that, it was completely open. You can stick your hand in here. Very open. And then after that, it's completely closed off. So if your machine is open, it's probably from maybe the 1920s and before. and anything that looks kind of just wacky, like the Blickensderfers or something like that. These, they started standardizing typewriters around the 1900s, maybe the 1910s. My, Oliver down there is from 1913. They stopped making those in, I think, the 20s or 30s. So if it looks unusual, it's also probably older, or European, which still makes it more valuable. Now, finally, we will be talking about condition. Condition matters a lot. These machines both work really well, and they are cosmetically and mechanically good. And they will command higher prices because of that. But if this chrome was tarnished, or the keys were broken, or like missing keys and stuff, or if it was like heavily rusted, or the carriage didn't move, stuff like that, then, well, of course it would be worth a lot less. Like, currently this is probably close to $100, maybe $120. But with all of that done, it's like $50 max. Now, the one major issue is some damage can be repaired, some damage cannot be repaired. And, well, first things first, all damage can be repaired. Anything that happened to these can be fixed, but I mean reasonably. If there's something broken, it might not be worth anything. For example, I've had a few machines come through here where the carriage would go just both ways all of the time. There is a rack and pinion, and normally, unless this is like stuck shut, and it's doing that, then the pinion or the rack are damaged. And in that case, you kind of have to take apart the entire machine. There's not really much you can do. You have to source another pinion. That is what I had to deal with that machine, but that one was old, so it was still valuable, and I was very lucky I could just buy a new one. But 99% of the time, if there is, like, advancement problems, they can't really be fixed. If it does advance, then there's hope. There's also another thing to keep in mind. Mainsprings. This is the heart of the machine. There is a small cord here that applies tension to the carriage, so when it is released, it'll continuously pull the carriage to the left. If the cord is missing, it is not hopeless. It can still be fixed, but it is challenging, and if you're new to this, maybe shy away from those ones. If it's missing the mainspring entirely, or the mainspring doesn't have any tension on it at all, and you can't put tension on it, then it needs a new mainspring. And depending on the machine, it can be a nightmare to put a new mainspring in there. I've heard the Royal 10s from the 1920s is a pain in the butt. This you might be able to get away with if you had a replacement, but then we move into the next problem. Where are you going to get the replacement part from? You might have to just buy another machine of the same type, and in that case, well, if that one works, then you just fix that one up. So, you're kind of forced to source one from eBay. There is some places that sell them on eBay. There's one, the Antique Chop. That's actually where I got the pinion from the Smith Premier. Or if you go to a local typewriter shop, they may be able to give you a part that you need. But they're really just Hail Marys. Another thing to keep in mind is rubber. These are screwed. This machine is over 80 years old, and the rubber shows. Rubber doesn't make the biggest impact value-wise. Of course, new rubber is going to, like, add a lot, but not having rubber isn't going to drop it that much. The reason having new rubber would add a lot is because you also fix everything else up as well. You need new rubber when you're doing a full restoration, and getting new rubber parts is kind of expensive sometimes. So if it has new rubber, then the machine is going to be worth a lot more. But if you can make do with, like, maybe manufacturing your own, Like I used some foam furniture pads for the Oliver that was missing his feet. For this machine, I had a parts machine, and its feet were pretty well, and I got insanely lucky. I just shoved them into the holes, and they fit, and they're not going to come out. They're actually really secure in there. By the way, I don't know if this is going to help anyone, but fun fact, the feet from a late 40s Remington KMC fits an early 40s Underwood portable typewriter. Who would have thunk? And with that, we've come to the end of the video. One thing I kind of didn't mention that much was standard typewriters. They don't go for that much. Not as much as portable typewriters. People don't really have a spot to put them, and if someone's gonna buy a portable typewriter, they're gonna want to type on the go with it. That's why the cases add so much value. So if you have a standard typewriter or see a standard typewriter, they should go for less, unless they're really old. If they're really old, then they go for more. I feel like I'm missing something. Maybe. I don't know, probably not. I think I covered everything, but if I am missing something, feel free to leave a comment. I, so far, have read them all. My channel is fairly small, so if you leave a comment, I should be able to get to you. I hope you liked the video, and if you have any ideas for anything I should do in the future, let me know. Yeah, I really feel like I'm missing something when it comes to standard typewriters. Oh yeah, they weigh a lot. That's why they don't go for much. Duh. They weigh just like 40 pounds. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit, more like 25 to 30. It's a lot, so they go for less. And shipping is expensive, so they go for less online too. They're fun, they're neat, they're good cheap typewriters. But, yeah, no, if you see one going for a lot in an antique store, I wouldn't get it. One last nugget of information I will leave you. eBay prices are not antique store prices. I see so often antique stores selling typewriters with eBay prices, selling a machine like this for $300 or $400, and I'm like, no one's gonna buy that. It's too expensive. And yet, I come back in the store 3 years later, and they're still there. Who would have thunk? Me, I thunk. It irritates me. Like, if you don't want to sell a typewriter, then don't sell it. You don't have to. But if you are going to sell one, don't price them so obscenely expensive. But I'm not the seller, so it's not really my choice how much they get sold for. But if you see any going for eBay prices, I'd shy away. Unless they're really old. But even if they are old, still... Because if you're seeing them at an antique store, they should still demand lower prices. You're paying for the convenience of buying the machine on eBay when you're buying a machine on eBay. Because you can just search up what you want to buy. That's convenient, so it costs more. And it gets shipped right to your house. It's so convenient. That's why the prices go for more on there. But in an antique store, not like you get to choose what you come in for. Okay, I started rambling a bit. Whoops. The video was supposed to be ended 2 minutes ago. If any of you watched to this point, good on you. I guess you really like my videos. I hope to be making more soon. I did kind of like making this one. This was fun. I kind of want to do this more often. Anywho, that's the end of the video now. Bye. Have a nice rest of your day. Thanks for staying along.